house. The Frog Prince. Long ago there lived a king who had 3 daughters. The young women were all lovely, and many princes came to seek their hands in marriage, but everyone agreed that the youngest princess was loveliest of all. Near the royal family's castle there was a shady wood. In summer the youngest princess liked nothing better than to walk through the wood to a well. There she would stay, playing with a golden ball she often carried, admiring it in the dappled light. One hot day the princess was doing just that when her ball suddenly slipped through her fingers. It hit the ground and bounced up over the edge of the well, dropping into the water with a splash. The princess peered down inside the well, but she could see nothing but darkness. She sank down onto the mossy ground and started to cry. "Don't upset yourself," said a croaky voice. "I can get your ball back." The princess looked up and startled. There was no one around except for a plump frog squatting on the edge of the well. "Really?" she gasped, brightening. "Yes, of course," reassured the frog. "But what will you give me if I do?" "Oh, anything," she gushed, the delighted girl. "My silver shoes, my golden purse, even my diamond tiara." "No, no," gulped the frog. "What would princess grew pale. "It's no giant," she said in a very small voice. "It's a horrid frog," and she explained what had happened the day before. Then the knocking began again, and the frog's voice said, "Youngest princess, let me in. I want what you promised me." The king looked grave. "You made a promise, and you must keep it," he said firmly. The youngest princess stood slowly, took a deep breath, and went to let the frog in. The frog hopped at her heels back to her chair. "Lift me up so I can sit with you," he croaked. The princess turned away in disgust, but the king insisted that she do as the frog had asked. Once the frog was on the table next to the princess, he said, "Now push those golden plates a little nearer so that we may eat together." And the princess had to obey. When the frog's tummy was full, he gave a yawn. "Delicious," he said, "but now I'm tired. Let's go to bed." Then the princess hung her head and began to weep, but the king gave her a stern look, so she picked up the slimy creature with just her finger and thumb and held him out, away from her. She carried him upstairs to her bedroom and dropped him in a corner, before quickly jumping into bed and drawing the covers over her head. Then the frog came hopping up to her bedside, croaking, "Let me snuggle in too, or I will tell your father." The princess groaned. She threw back the quilt and let the frog leap in onto the mattress alongside her, but at the touch of his cold, damp skin, she grew angry. "That's enough," she yelled. She seized the frog and tossed him away. As he fell, something very strange happened. The frog began to blur and change and grow, and then, to the princess's astonishment, a handsome prince with the kindest face she had ever seen was suddenly standing in front of her. The prince smiled and gently explained how a wicked witch had enchanted him. The princess was the only one who could save him, and by carrying out her promise, she had broken the spell. The prince knelt before the princess in thanks, and as they gazed into each other's eyes, they fell deeply in love. Of course, the king was delighted and gave his permission for the joyful couple to get married, and it wasn't long before they set off to the prince's kingdom in a golden carriage drawn by 8 white horses, with crowds of well-wishers cheering them along the way. The Fisherman and His Wife. Once upon a time there was a poor fisherman who lived with his wife in a shack by the sea. Every morning the fisherman went out fishing, and every evening he returned with only 1 or 2 little fish, just enough food to keep them from starving. One day the fisherman was astonished who said he was an enchanted prince. Can you believe? He asked. Me to let go, so of course I did. Didn't you wish for anything first? Moaned the woman. No, said the man, it didn't cross my mind. What could I have wished for? Well, look around, sighed the woman. It's awful to live in this shack. You might have wished for a small cottage. Go and find the flounder and ask him. The man didn't feel comfortable about it, but his wife moaned and moaned until at last he gave in and went back to the sea. The water was no longer clear but grey and choppy as he called out, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I beg you, here to me. Then the flounder came swimming up to him and said, Well, what do you want? It's not me, said the man, it's my wife. She does not want to live in the shack any longer. She would like a cottage. Go then, said the flounder, she has it already. When the man went home, his wife was no longer in the shack, but in a little cottage. There was a porch and pretty rooms filled with lovely furniture. Behind the cottage was a garden with hens and flowers and fruit. Look, said the wife, isn't this nice? The couple lived happily for about a fortnight until the woman announced, Listen, husband, I want to live in a castle. Go to the flounder and ask for one. And she moaned and moaned until at last the fisherman went back to the sea. The sky was heavy and the waves were churning as the fisherman called out, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I beg you, here to me. Then the flounder appeared out of the surf and said, Well, what does your wife want now? Alas, said the fisherman, feeling rather scared, she wants to live in a castle. Go then, she has it, said the flounder. Then the man went home, but instead of the cottage he found a massive stone castle. There was a great hall with servants. There was beautiful wall hangings and thick carpets. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling over a huge stone table laid with fine food and wine. Behind the castle there was a courtyard with stables and horses and a magnificent park beyond. Look at it all, said the wife. Isn't this beautiful? And they enjoyed a feast and went to bed. Next morning the wife prodded her husband awake and said, Get up, I want to be king over all the land. Go to the flounder and ask him. And she moaned and moaned until at last the man went back to the sea, muttering, It is not right all the way. When he came to the sea, the sky was pitch black. A strong wind whipped up enormous waves as the fisherman called, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I beg you, here to me. The flounder heard him and came to the shore and said, What does your wife want this time? Alas, said the fisherman, she wants to be king now. Go then, replied the flounder, she is king already. When the fisherman came to where the castle had been, he saw a gleaming palace. Ranks of soldiers stood outside, and as he approached they threw open the enormous doors. There were splendid courtiers in a magnificent hall, and his wife was sitting husband. I order you to go and ask this instant." Then the fisherman was afraid, but he had to go. A great storm raged as he stood by the sea, and called, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I beg you, here to me." Then the flounder rose from the crashing waves and said, "Well, what can your wife want for now?" "Alas," whispered the fisherman, quaking, "she wants to be God." "Go then," said the flounder, "and you will find her back again in the shack." And there they are both still living to this very day. The Queen Bee. Once upon a time there was a king who had 3 sons. When the 2 eldest princes grew up, they each went off into the world to seek adventures, but they both made one mistake after another and fell in with bad people and wasted their money, so they never made it home. The youngest prince, whom everyone called Prince Nitwit, really missed his brothers, so when he was old enough, he set off to join them. Prince Nitwit had to work hard to find his brothers. To his surprise, when he found them at last, the 2 oldest princes weren't pleased to see him. "So, you've tracked us down so you can have adventure too, have you?" they jeered. "Well, we're brainy and brave, and we've made a mess of things, so what on earth makes you think that a simpleton like you is going to be a hero?" But eventually, after a good deal of complaining, Prince Nitwit's big brothers said they would. Let him travel along with them. The 3 hadn't gone far when they came to an anthill. The 2 eldest brothers had a nasty idea to stir up the anthill with a stick so they could laugh at the tiny insects scurrying off in terror. But Prince Nitwit wouldn't hear of it. "Leave them alone," he said. "I won't let you hurt them." His brothers grumbled about it, but at last they agreed to travel on. They soon came to a lake where ducks were swimming. The 2 eldest princes discussed how they could kill some and eat them, but the Prince Nitwit forbade it. "No way," he said, "we already have enough food to eat." His brothers complained about it, but eventually they agreed to travel on. Soon they spotted a bee's nest in a tree overflowing with honey. The 2 eldest princes wanted to make a fire underneath the tree to smoke the bees out so they could steal the honey, but Prince Nitwit would not hear of it. "Absolutely not," he said. His brothers sneered at him, but finally agreed to travel on. One morning the 3 princes came to a towering castle, but there was no sign of any people or animals anywhere. They crossed the silent drawbridge and past the stables, all totally bare. Nervously, the prince entered the keep. Every room was furnished just as if people were living there, but there wasn't a soul in sight. Empty room after empty room, the princes crept until they wandered into a huge hall where there was a stone table. next. "Bah, that sounds easy enough," interrupted the eldest prince. "Leave it to me." He set off into the wood, but though he searched high and low all day, at the end of it he had found only 100 pearls. At sunset the last sunbeam soaked into the land, and he was turned to stone. The second brother was determined to prove that he was braver, brainier, and better than the eldest. The next day he set off into the forest to take his turn, but alas, he did only slightly better. By sunset he had found just 200 of the gleaming pearls, and he too was turned to stone. Poor Prince Nitwit was on his own again once more. On the morning of the third day, he set out to complete the task that his brothers had failed at, but he felt so miserable about his brothers that he hadn't found many pearls at all before he sat down and began to weep. Suddenly, march, 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 up came the king of the ant-hill that Prince Nitwit had saved. With 5,000 ant soldiers, it wasn't long at all before the little insects had collected all 1,000 of the pearls and put them in a heap. Prince Nitwit's heart lifted. He thanked the ants heartily and then hurried to read the next instructions on the table. "Fetch the key of the princess's sleeping chamber out of the lake." Prince Nitwit went and looked at the huge mirror-like expanse of water in dismay. He knew it would take him years to find the key hidden in the murky depths, but just then the two ducks whose lives he had just saved came. Swimming up, they upped tails and dived down to the bottom of the lake and came up, one carrying the lost key in its beak. Prince Nitwit was overjoyed and thanked the ducks heartily. Now all he had to do was follow the final instruction, which he now read: choose the youngest and loveliest of the 3 sleeping princesses. But this was truly an impossible task. Prince Nitwit found the room where the 3 princesses lay sleeping, but they all looked equally beautiful and each appeared to be just as young as the other. As Prince Nitwit stood there about to despair, the queen bee of the bee's nest that he had saved came buzzing along. The clever queen bee remembered that before the youngest princess had been enchanted, she had eaten a spoonful of honey. She landed on the lips of each princess one by one, and hovered over the one where she tasted honey. And so it was that Prince Nitwit made the right choice and broke the spell. The 3 princesses woke up, and the 2 stone statues in the woods were changed back into Prince Nitwit's brothers. Of course, Prince Nitwit married the youngest, loveliest princess and became king, and his brothers married the other 2 princesses. And that's how, thanks to the queen bee, Prince Nitwit became the hero of a truly amazing adventure. The Glass Coffin. There was once a young man who was learning to become a tailor, but he had always longed to have adventures, so one day he decided to go off travelling and see something of the world. But soon after he set off, he became lost in a great forest. To make matters worse, he suddenly heard the sound of wild beasts roaring. All at once, a great black bull and a beautiful stag thundered through the trees towards him, their horns locked in a fight. The ground shook with their trampling, and the air rang with their cries. For a long time the struggle seemed was when the tailor thought he could hold on no longer. The stag came to a stop in front of a huge wall of rock and gently let him down. Then the stag drove its antlers against a little door set into the rock, and the door sprang open. Flames and smoke billowed out, then deep voice boomed. Enter! The tailor drew up his courage and plunged through. He found himself in a huge hall with a floor made of polished square stones. The voice boomed again. Stand on the broad stone which lies in the middle of the hall. Again the young man obeyed. He stood on the stone, and it slowly gave way beneath his feet, carrying him down into the earth. When the stone eventually stopped moving and the tailor looked around, he found himself in another hall, similar to the first. However, this hall had many hollows cut into the walls. In each one stood a glass vase filled with blue glass. In the middle of the hall stood two big glass chests, and the tailor strode over to look at them. Inside the first was a model of a tiny castle surrounded by a miniature village, tiny houses and farms, all perfectly detailed. Then he looked in the second glass chest. Inside lay the most beautiful young woman the tailor had ever seen. She seemed to be fast asleep, but as the tailor stood gazing at her, she suddenly opened her eyes and looked straight at him. Oh, thank goodness, the lovely lady cried. Someone's here at last. Please be quick. Help me out of this prison. All you have to do is push back the bolt of this glass coffin and I will be free. The young tailor hurried to release her. Oh, thank you, the beautiful young woman cried, sitting up and stepping out of the wooden chest. To the tailor's delight, she flung her arms around him and kissed him. Heaven must have guided you here to help me. Please stay with me forever. I am the daughter of a rich nobleman, she exclaimed. My parents died when I was young, and my elder brother and I stayed living in our castle, looking after each other. We were very happy with the kind villagers around us. Then one evening a stranger came to the castle and asked for my hand in marriage. I turned him down, which made him very angry. He muttered black magic, and I fell to the ground in a faint. When I came to, I found myself in this cave in the glass coffin. The stranger, and by now I had realized he was a wicked magician, appeared again, and he said he had changed my brother into a stag. He had shrunk my castle and village into a tiny model and set it in the other glass chest, and he had turned all my people into smoke and trapped them in glass bottles. He told me that he would give me one more chance. If I would now marry him, he would turn everything back the way it was. All he had to do was break the spell, was to get everything out of the glass, but I couldn't say yes to such an evil monster. So he vanished, leaving me here in my prison. I fell into a deep enchanted sleep, but at last you've arrived to set me free. Now please help me lift the glass chest with my castle in him onto that broad stone. The young tailor did so at once. Immediately the stone began to rise up and up until they were in the higher hall and could carry the chest out into the open air. Here the young woman opened the lid. It was amazing to watch the castle, houses and farms quickly grow, stretch themselves and return back to their normal sizes and places. After this, the young woman and the tailor